Something was opened on January 24. Not physically, but spiritually. You felt it, didn't you? The sudden heaviness, the tension in your home. Why are families being targeted right now? Why are attacks happening while people sleep? Tonight, an ex-witch exposes what was unlocked and what you must do before it's too late. January 24 was not random. It was not coincidence. It was calculated, timed, and activated. You were living your normal day while something ancient shifted in the unseen realm. A gate was opened, not a metaphor, a spiritual access point. You didn't see it with your eyes, but your spirit felt it. Sudden unrest in your home, children waking at odd hours. Arguments appearing out of nowhere. Dreams turning heavy, dark, or disturbing. That is how gates announce themselves. As someone who once stood on the other side, I'm telling you this plainly. Witches don't need chaos to begin the work. They need access. And January 24 was marked for access against families. Why families? Because families carry legacy. Families carry identity. Families carry spiritual authority that threatens darkness. When witches want to weaken a generation, they don't start in public places. They start in bedrooms. They start during sleep. They start when guards are down. January 24 aligned with ritual cycles meant to exploit exhaustion, distraction, and spiritual neglect. Not everyone was targeted, but every unguarded household was visible. You may be asking yourself why things suddenly felt off, why prayer felt harder, why peace slipped quicker than usual, why your home didn't feel like rest anymore. That was not your imagination. That was pressure testing. In witchcraft, gates are opened to observe response. They watch who notices. They watch who resists. They watch who stays asleep. If a family remains passive, the pressure increases. If fear enters, the assignment deepens. If silence continues, footholds become strongholds. This is why sleep is the battlefield. During sleep, the conscious guard is lowered. The mind stops filtering. The spirit becomes more exposed. That is why attacks manifest as nightmares, sudden fear, heaviness on the chest, or waking at the same hour repeatedly. That is why children suddenly resist bedtime. That is why couples begin misunderstanding each other without cause. Witchcraft does not always announce itself with chaos. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it simply enters and observes. January 24 opened a monitoring gate. Its purpose was to identify which families are spiritually alert and which are not. Which homes are sealed and which are open, which parents cover their children and which assume safety without action. This is uncomfortable truth, but you need truth, not comfort. Witches target sleep because it is when identity is reinforced. Dreams shape belief. Rest restores strength. Disrupt rest and you weaken resistance. That is why fatigue suddenly feels heavier, why motivation drops, why emotional reactions feel amplified. These are not personality flaws. They are symptoms of intrusion. You must understand something critical. A gate does not mean ownership. Access does not mean authority. Darkness can enter space, but it cannot stay where authority is enforced. But authority must be activated intentionally. Families that pray casually become vulnerable. Families that assume protection without enforcement invite testing. Families that delay response allow patterns to form. This is why timing matters. January 24 was a beginning point, not an ending. What happens next depends on what you do before sleep. Sleep is not passive. Sleep is a handover. Either you hand your household to peace, or something else attempts to occupy that space. In witchcraft practice, families that do not spiritually lock their homes at night are considered accessible, not cursed. Accessible. And accessibility is enough. You may be thinking, why would this happen to me? Because you carry light. Because your family matters. Because what grows in your house threatens darkness. Witches don't waste effort on empty houses. They target potential. The fear you feel right now is not meant to paralyze you. It is meant to wake you. Awareness breaks half the assignment immediately. The moment you see the pattern, the gate begins to lose power. The moment you respond with authority, access collapses, but silence strengthens it. That is why this warning matters now. Not tomorrow. Not when things get worse. Now. January 24 marked a windows close when authority is enforced. You are not powerless in this moment. You are positioned. Your home can be sealed. Your sleep can be restored. Your children can rest without disturbance, but it requires deliberate action, not passive belief. What you do before sleep determines what has permission to operate overnight. This is not about fear. This is about order. Darkness only operates where order is absent. And in the next point, you will understand exactly how witches exploit nighttime routines and how to shut that door completely. Witchcraft is not random. It is strategic. And night is chosen for a reason. Darkness does not gain power because it is night. It gains opportunity because people disengage. When night comes, routines change. Phones stay longer in hands. Prayer becomes shorter or disappears. Homes grow quiet but not guarded. This is the opening. In occult practice, nighttime is when permissions are tested. Not forced, tested. Families are not attacked first. They are assessed. Witches observe patterns. Who sleeps without covering their home? Who ends the day in distraction instead of authority? Who collapses into bed emotionally drained and spiritually empty? That is the invitation. You must understand this clearly. Nothing enters a home without some form of allowance. Sometimes allowance is agreement. Sometimes it is ignorance. Sometimes it is exhaustion. Most families are not spiritually defeated. They are spiritually tired. That fatigue is intentional. Nighttime attacks are designed to blur clarity, to confuse discernment, to make spiritual response feel heavy or unnecessary. That is why thoughts spiral more at night, why anxiety spikes after midnight, why peace feels harder to access when the lights go off. This is not psychology alone. This is timing. In witchcraft, the mind is targeted before the spirit. If the mind is unsettled, authority is delayed. Night rituals are often designed to ride emotional residue, unresolved anger, unspoken fear, lingering bitterness from the day. These emotions act like fingerprints. They mark space. That is why arguments before bed are so dangerous. That is why unresolved tension in a home creates openings. That is why children who fall asleep afraid become spiritually exposed. Fear lowers resistance. Witches don't need belief to operate. They need emotional leakage. When a family goes to sleep without restoring peace, the house is noisy in the spirit realm. Noise attracts attention. You may have noticed something recently. The same hour you wake up repeatedly. The same type of dream looping. The same sense of being watched or pressed. That repetition is not accidental. It is reconnaissance. In occult systems, repetition is used to test response time. If there is no spiritual correction, pressure increases gradually. First comes disturbance. Then comes distraction. Then comes division. That is the progression. Families begin misunderstanding each other. Parents feel disconnected from children. Spouses feel emotionally distant without reason. This is not relational failure, it is interference. The goal is simple: break unity. Because unity enforces authority automatically. When families are divided emotionally, covering weakens. When covering weakens, access widens. Nighttime is chosen because authority must be intentionally reasserted then. Authority does not carry over automatically from yesterday. This is where many believers misunderstand. Protection. Protection is not a passive state. It is an active posture. What you did spiritually in the morning does not automatically guard your sleep. What you allow emotionally during the day influences what approaches at night. Witches know this. That is why exhaustion is weaponized. That is why distractions increase before bed. That is why people scroll instead of sealing their atmosphere. Screens are not evil, but unguarded minds are vulnerable. When the mind is flooded, the spirit becomes quiet. When the spirit is quiet, discernment dims. This is why children are targeted heavily at night. Children carry innocence and future authority. Disrupting their rest disrupts tomorrow. Night terrors are not random. Sudden crying during sleep is not always developmental. Some of it is spiritual pressure testing. And parents often dismiss it because they do not want to believe something unseen could be involved. Denial does not stop access. Authority does. The enemy prefers ignorance over fear. Fear can still provoke action. Ignorance produces silence. You were never meant to fear the night. You were meant to rule it. But rulership must be declared. In occult practice, homes are categorized quickly: covered, uncovered, inconsistent. Inconsistent homes are targeted most because resistance appears sometimes but not always. That inconsistency creates confusion in the spirit realm. Confusion invites challenge. If authority is firm every night, access collapses. If authority is emotional or optional, intrusion continues. This is why what you do before sleep matters more than you were taught. Prayer without authority is comfort, not protection. Words without enforcement are noise, not command. You must shift from hoping for peace to establishing it. Nighttime rituals in witchcraft are designed to mimic peace while stealing it. False calm, artificial rest, temporary quiet. But true peace is enforced order. Your home does not need louder prayers. It needs clearer authority. In the next point, I will show you exactly what witches hope you never do before sleep, and the one action that shuts the gate completely. There is one moment witches rely on: the final minutes before sleep, not because of darkness, but because of transition. That moment determines who governs the atmosphere overnight. Most families end the day reacting to stress, reacting to screens, reacting to exhaustion. Reaction is surrender. Witches do not fear prayer alone. They fear alignment with authority. Here is the truth they never want you to understand. Spiritual authority must be transferred consciously before sleep. If it is not transferred to order, it is left unattended. Unattended space is not neutral. It becomes available. This is why the final voice heard before sleep matters. This is why the final emotion carried into rest matters. This is why the final agreement made in the heart matters. Witches know families rarely close the day intentionally. They assume rest will come naturally. They assume protection is automatic. It is not. Before sleep, every home must be spiritually sealed, not emotionally, not vaguely, specifically. What witches fear is not long rituals. They fear decisive authority spoken with clarity. One clear declaration with authority dismantles hours of preparation on their side. That is why distraction intensifies before bed. That is why arguments escalate late at night. That is why sudden tiredness hits right when intention forms. Anything to delay sealing. Because once authority is declared, access is revoked. You must understand this. Authority does not come from volume. It comes from position. When you take responsibility for your home, the atmosphere responds immediately. This is what witches hope you never realize. You do not need to fight darkness. You need to establish order. Darkness flees order automatically. Before sleep, your home must hear your voice of command. Not fear, not begging, command. You speak peace into rooms. You declare rest over minds. You enforce boundaries over dreams. Silence is not peace. Peace is enforced alignment. Children should never fall asleep without covering, not because they are weak, but because they are valuable. Witches look for unclaimed territory. When a parent claims their child spiritually before sleep, that territory becomes inaccessible. This is why some children sleep peacefully while others struggle. It is not personality, it is coverage. Coverage is not intention. Coverage is action. You must also understand something personal. If you feel resistance to doing this consistently, that resistance is proof of its effectiveness. The mind will argue. The body will resist. Fatigue will whisper excuses. That resistance is not yours. It is opposition. Consistency terrifies the enemy. One night of authority disrupts access. 7 nights of authority destroys patterns. Witches rely on forgetfulness. They rely on inconsistency. They rely on families meaning well but not following through. What you establish nightly becomes law in your home. And once law is established, it enforces itself. This is why some homes feel safe the moment you enter. Authority lives there. This is why some homes feel heavy even when quiet. Authority is absent. You were never meant to hope your home stays safe. You were meant to govern it. Before sleep, the spiritual atmosphere must be addressed, not emotionally, legally. You declare who is allowed. You declare who is not. You do not negotiate. You announce. This is the moment witches lose interest. Because sealed homes are a waste of effort. They move on. In the final point, you will receive the exact posture and mindset that keeps your household permanently guarded without fear, without obsession, without struggle. Protection was never meant to feel exhausting. Authority was never meant to feel stressful. Witches want you anxious, alert, and reactive, because fear weakens consistency. But true spiritual covering is calm, firm, and settled. Here is the final truth. A sealed home is not a tense home. It is an ordered home. Once authority is established correctly, you stop fighting nightly battles. The atmosphere adjusts. Resistance fades. Peace returns naturally. This is what witches do not want you to discover. Authority, once installed, maintains itself. You do not need to obsess over darkness. You need to maintain alignment. A permanently sealed household operates on 3 foundations. First, clarity of leadership. Every home must have spiritual leadership. Not control, not dominance. Responsibility. Someone must consciously take ownership of the atmosphere. When leadership is unclear, authority is fragmented. Fragmentation invites challenge. This does not require perfection. It requires consistency. Second, emotional order. Unresolved emotional residue attracts intrusion. Not because emotions are sinful, but because disorder creates noise. You do not go to sleep angry. You do not go to sleep afraid. You do not go to sleep unresolved. Peace must be restored before rest. This alone closes more doors than people realize. Third, verbal enforcement. Authority must be spoken, not thought, not assumed. Words establish jurisdiction. When you speak peace, it is not symbolic, it is administrative. This is why silence never protects a home. Silence abdicates leadership. Once these foundations are set, the home becomes uninteresting to darkness. Witches do not attack fortified territory. They look for easy access. A sealed home does not react to pressure. Pressure dissolves before it reaches the door. This is why fear is unnecessary. Fear is only needed where authority is missing. You were never meant to live alert to attack. You were meant to live positioned above it. Once you establish order nightly, sleep returns. Dreams stabilize. Children rest. Homes feel light again. And most importantly, the gate closes, not temporarily, permanently. January 24 only had power because many were unaware. Awareness removes leverage. From this moment forward, your home is no longer passive. It is governed. And governed homes are not invaded. They are respected. You are not late. You are not powerless. You are not exposed anymore. Authority has been restored to your hands. Your home is sealed. Your sleep is guarded. And from this night forward, peace rules where fear once tried to enter.